And we're live.
Bienvenue à l'event de haute en bas. Je m'appelle Rebecca et je suis votre co-hôte pour aujourd'hui. Et j'ai avec moi aussi votre autre co-hôte, Keenan. Keenan, j'ai une question pour toi. What are your top 3 favorite books all time?
I want to know why the whole format was just kidnapped in the name of French. That's what I want to know. So, hey, everybody, welcome to Sales Top to Bottom. I'm your host, Keenan. For those of you who are confused at the start of the show, Becc, please walk us through why.
I don't know. I'm in a mood. I said, welcome to Sales Top to Bottom. My name's Becc. I'm your co-host, and today with me, I have our other co-host, Keenan. So answer the question, Keenan, top 3 favorite books all time.
Gap selling.
Non-gap selling. I should have precursor, but I didn't want to be rude.
I don't know. Execution. Into the Wild. Swan Song. Oh, Ken Follett's Pillars of the Earth. That was sick.
I've never read it.
Oh my God. Pillars of the Earth was unbelievable. It's like 1,000 pages too. It was fucking good. And then Gone with the Wind. Oh man, that's so many good books. Oh my, then there's Animal Farm. Those are my favorite books to read ever. Animal Farm was amazing. I don't know. Take a pick.
What's your favorite movie of all time?
Someone asked me that the other day. I can't answer those because it's situational. There's never one that sticks, but I like, everything from Dangerous Liaisons to 12 Angry Men to the very first Lord of the Rings to the first 3 episodes of Star Wars, even though Jar Jar Binks was an idiot, to Citizen Kane. Just different movies for different reasons at different times.
Okay. Other than your daughters, who is your favorite person in the world?
Becc Holland.
Okay. I was going to burst into tears if it wasn't. I was going to roll the dice.
By the way, I think I was born the year that the first Lord of the Rings movie came out. So I just want to let you know that.
I got my first. You look great for 37, and I'm like, the first 37 kills me.
Oh, that's so bad. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Oh my goodness.
I'm still recovering. All right, Keenan.
Well, hey, we are on to the first segment of this podcast, which is Email Teardown. This is the segment where Keenan and Becc tear down emails and messages that were sent over to them. Now on to the first email. This one, the subject line for this one is, "Thank you for your request. Thank you so much for reaching out to us and expressing interest in our consulting services. We greatly appreciate your inquiry and the opportunity to provide you with more information. At Blank, we are dedicated to delivering exceptional consulting services that cater to your specific needs, that empower your business to thrive. We understand that every organization is unique, and we take pride in tailoring our solutions to address your challenges and drive sustainable growth. We offer a comprehensive range of consulting services, including..." Then they list off a whole bunch of services. "Through our collaborative approach, we work closely with our clients to understand their goals, develop customized strategies, and implement practical solutions that yield tangible results. We will contact you shortly to schedule a free consultation. Warm regards." Becc, what are your thoughts on this email?
This is a mind-blowing moment to me because this was a demo request follow-up that was sent to Hala at fgscript.co, which is basically our marketing line, which means a company out there is sending out responses to demo requests to generate pipeline when you never requested a demo. You never requested to talk to them, and they're sending them out as quote unquote follow-up to try to book pipeline. And I think that is atrocious. Response to demo request.
It was so good you hear the echo. Keenan, what are your thoughts about this email?
Well, she jumped in where I was going to jump in. because I didn't get it, but my assumption was that this person or Becc, whoever, didn't request it for starters.
Nope.
And then from there, if that's the route they're going to take, the rest of the email is all product centric. It doesn't provide any value to the user. Here's all our services. Check it out. It's like a checklist. You know what I'm saying? We do this, we do this, we do this, we do this, we do this. I mean, I don't get it.
I mean, like, it's impossible that someone with this email requested a demo because it's the marketing line. So this company is literally just blasting to all their customers on outbound, pretending like they requested to talk to them. I'm like,
yeah. So let's just break it down. The most unnerving thing about this is it's disingenuous. And if you start a sales relationship being disingenuous, then you erode trust, credibility, and if they ever find out you're hosed, and you can't come back from that.
No, 100%. Okay, we're on to the next email. This one, the subject is ERC misinformation / tri-merit contact information. Hi, Keenan. Was unable to connect with you at your office on the phone, reaching out to make an introduction and address your industry being targeted by ERC mills. Below, please find the top issues identified by the IRS. If this raises any concerns or if you would like to schedule a brief call reviewing eligibility, Calendly link below to help coordinate schedules. And it puts in a couple links as well as the specific things within the notice that they should look at, and then puts the Calendly link under. Best regards, Xavier Killing. Keenan, what are your thoughts on this email?
First of all, I don't even know what the hell they do. So read the first line again.
Was unable to, let me go to the one. Was able to connect with you at your office on the phone, reaching out to make an introduction and address your industry being targeted by ERC mills.
I don't even know what the hell an ERC mill is. Like right there, right out of the gate, I have no clue what an ERC mill is. So I'm not going to go look it up. And then secondly, give all these things. I'm supposed to go do all this research. There's all these numbers or sections of the book I'm supposed, like the amount of work this person wants me to do to sell me something. And I have no clue what he's talking about, what an ERC mill is, why it should matter, why I should be concerned. This email could have been really easy. Hey, if you are concerned about being targeted by ERC mills, and then tell me what an ERC mill is, and then say those who are exposed to or potentially at risk for, then you might have my attention. And then I might say, and so therefore, if you're not doing these three things, your risk is through the roof. Would you be open to a 15-minute talk to talk about your risk exposure or blah, blah, blah? I might actually call, because that's what's called a knowledge gap. I don't know anything. This person says I may be exposed. I'll give you 15 minutes to test my exposure. Absolutely. I'm not going to start looking through all your documentation, but I'll give you 15 minutes. But I don't know anything that's going on. So no, I'm not going to waste
We got back. The siren is back. I do not want to aim it directly on the microphone for our audience, audience's sake.
Good work.
But yes, with that, sorry, Becc, we couldn't get to you to your teardown of this email, but we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
Sales Mythology.
This is the segment where Becc and Keenan demystify common myths in the sales industry. Now, the first sales myth of today is always sell straight to the top. Keenan, why don't you start us off with this one?
No, you don't always do anything in sales. No, you don't always do anything in sales. The idea that the top is responsible, has enough understanding of what the problem is or problems are, is a myth in itself, especially the bigger an organization is, right? I mean, you get to a big enough organization and the CEO or COO or CRO may not have any clue what's going on, what's going on with a particular problem inside the organization needs to be addressed. Now that person down below may know what the problem is and figure it out and bubble it up and say, hey, Mary, this is what's going on in the org. We need to fix it. This is what I'm recommending. Okay, then you may have to end up talking to the CRO or CEO or CEO, whatever. But to start there, particularly in bigger organizations, that's a fool's errand. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, but always, never. You like that?
I love it. Absolutely love it. Becc, what about you? What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I see people's intent, like they want to get to power, so to speak. And so I think they view power in the best case scenario in a very monomaniacal way, which is not a good thing. Meaning they're like, who has the power to sign on the dotted line? And it's like, okay, this one person, hypothetically. But I think what people don't take into account is the power of everyone else that's involved. So, for instance, if you're like in a family and the one who's going to sign on the dotted line is the father, let's say, okay? But all the kids are complaining about this one problem that they have, you know, and the wife is complaining about the problem, and they all want to meet with someone on the solution. And some vendors would say, well, they're not the quote unquote decision maker, so we're not even going to worry ourselves or bother ourselves with like talking to these other people of family. And it's like, but the reality is they're the one with the problem, and they're the one that can heavily, especially in joint, influence the decision, even if they're the one not making the decision. So I think it's kind of like a diss too, to not even include other people. But like starting from the top down, I see people specifically do it in enterprise. They're like, I want to talk to VPs of sales or CROs only, you know, and we want to sell into enterprise. And I'm like, there's no CRO over at Dell. Like that just doesn't exist. And like senior managers can have decision-making power, sign-off authority, and budget. So I think starting there always, for sure, is definitely a huge myth that people need to let go of just for ego's sake.
Okay, so before we move on, I would like to create a public service announcement for every single person listening, and I'm going to do this in the most constructive way that I know possible. Okay, so in our comments, there is a gentleman by the name of Shahzad Ali. Okay, Shahzad, I hope you're listening because I'm going to do this for you. Your comment in this program right now is absolutely inappropriate and the wrong time. So Ali said, hey, Keenan and other attendees, my name is Shahzad, and I'm lead generation, list building, data entry, email marketing, LinkedIn outreach, and web research expert. I can help you to provide B2B leads, and I can outreach to them to convert them for your business. If you're interested, then let me know. I am available 24/7. And then he says, kindly read my message above. Shahzad, no, absolutely, positively not. You do not hijack comment sections to pitch your product. It does not bode well on you. You do not look credible. You do not look like you add value. You look like a shark. You look like someone who is self-serving, and you look like someone who only cares about themselves. If you want to use this platform to drive revenue or drive leads, what you do is you participate. You send us a question that asks about lead generation and the best way to lead generate. You respond to our comments with your opinion on lead generation and maybe some unique approaches to it. You give away free content, you participate as an expert, and you leave your business out of it. So everybody watching, if this is what you think LinkedIn is for, this is why you're failing, and this is why buyers shut you down and buyers are fed up. This is not the time or place to interject, interrupt an experience to push your agenda. So
Well, keep in mind what Keenan and I both sell on the side is essentially lead generation services, like prospecting training. So it's a double hit. I side with Keenan.
So anyways, back to it.
All right, back to it. The next myth of today is never give up on a lead. Becc, what are your thoughts on this one?
Oh, it's a huge myth. Keenan, good job. Keenan came up with this one. I'd say the first time that you should give up on a lead is if they don't have a problem that's big enough. You should stop bugging them. Second time you should give up on a lead is, and this is going to be subjective, but you know, one of the tenets of Gap is like, are they willing to go on a journey with you? And do they admit that they have a problem? And until someone admits that, like, there's nothing to solve until you have not only their consent, but really their initiation. So if the person doesn't feel like it's big enough of a problem, things you can do is find impacts, current impacts, future impacts, current event triggers, future event triggers they didn't know about to add to the size of the problem. But once they know that, if they still aren't willing to solve it, then you should absolutely move on from a lead. You shouldn't just keep bugging them, but those are the two cases that come to mind. Keenan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolute myth. There's a million different times you should give up on a lead. Another one is if the buyer isn't willing to let you help them.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to engage with the buyer and they just won't give you the information you want and they just want you to just pitch them and just be a product dump, no, just give up on that lead because your chance of closing it are pretty low. Another time is when they never return any of your calls or they don't return your emails. You can only stalk somebody for so long. You can only try to chase them for so long. And so if they go dark and they don't want to come back, that means they don't want to participate in the journey. So move on. I mean, so there's a number of reasons. So the main answer here is no, you don't chase a lead forever. You need to spend your time in areas that you can bring value and do justice.
All right. The last sales myth of today is don't talk about the competition. Keenan, let us know your thoughts.
So I don't buy into this myth. It should be don't talk negatively about your competition. Okay? But absolutely, I believe you need to talk about the competition to allow people to see the comparison, to allow people to see the difference, to allow people to see how one helps and another doesn't help. So I'll talk about my competition where I'm like, yeah, I mean, these guys are really good here. We're not as good here. We're better here for these reasons. And so to let your buyer understand that you know the competitive landscape, you know all the different products, that you know what's going on in relationship to their problems and issues.
There you go.
Not just out in the world. Like, let me tell you, they suck. No. As it relates to the problem you're dealing with, let me tell you how so-and-so would solve it. And this is their general approach and method. This is how we solve. This is why we believe we're better, etc. But no, I mean, the answer is in the right environment, under the right circumstances, absolutely you talk about the competition.
Becc, what about you? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think it's great what Keenan said about framing it. And without the framing, you shouldn't be talking about anyone, right? So I've worked for dead-on competitors where Company A and Company B competed head-on with each other. Company A, when I was working there, believed things about Company B that weren't true. Company B believed things about Company A that weren't true. And I heard both of their sales reps saying all of this stuff with no actual factual data, right? They're just like, oh, well, we're the best, blah, blah, blah. But from a tactical perspective, how you can get out of talking for the competition for the moment that's necessary before you start talking at all is if someone walks up to you at a conference and they're like, let's say your outreach, and they're like, how do you compete with Sales Loft? Then I would say like, hey, before I launch into some big monologue about how awesome we are and how great, or how awesome we are and how terrible they are, if you don't mind me asking, hypothetically, what kind of problem were you trying to solve with either of us if you were to move forward? And pivot the conversation into doing discovery on them first. So you don't know how you compete until you know the features that are going to solve the problem that they have that you've diagnosed. You need to start there. Smooth like a criminal. What's the Michael Jackson song? My brain is dead.
Smooth criminal.
Smooth criminal.
Michael Jackson.
This stuff's falling out of my brain.
Well, hey, with that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
Take it or leave it.
This is the segment where I introduce common sales tactics, and Keenan and Becc let us know whether they would take it or leave it. So the first one of today is building an in-house training department. Becc, take it or leave it.
You men.
I apologize. I started with him last segment.
I have no power.
I'm sorry. But yes, what are your thoughts on this one?
You can get it for that later, man. So what is it? Say it again.
Building an in-house training department versus outsourcing it.
Wait, but it's a take it or leave it. Oh,
Yeah.
so it's take it.
Take it. Would you like to take it or leave it building an in-house training department?
Leave it. I would not. I would bring in outsource. And the reason, not because I am outsourced. The reason is, man, I'm going to get blown up for this one. I believe that it takes a specific expertise and focus on training. And people, whether you want to say they're the best or not, or blah, 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 if they're outsourced, their whole world is spent thinking about training, curriculum, how to get people to learn, the principles, all of that. So from a skill perspective, one of the biggest predicators on if someone's going to get good or something or not is just purely the amount of time that they spend on it and how quickly they get to 10,000 hours. So I would say leave it. I think that it's mostly the manager's jobs to enforce the principles of the training and to make sure that from a coaching perspective are ingrained. So I would say leave it for a training department internally.
All right, Keenan, what about you? Take it or leave it?
Leave it. Leave it. The only thing I would add is when you get to giant organizations, I understand that you can't keep paying somebody millions. So even in that case, what I would argue is it's a hybrid outsource. You either go find an organization that can build it for you and then you operate it, so that's still outsourced, or you go poach somebody from an organization, from from an ASG, from a Sandler, from someplace who knows this stuff and is now going to do it inside for you. But the idea of these organizations building their own sales methodology, generally speaking, is a fail. I haven't heard, and maybe they're out there, but I haven't heard of anybody doing this successful since IBM and Xerox, right? For whatever reason, I can't even begin to tell you why. So no, I think you should not build this yourself. That's 100% leave it. And you leverage the people outside who know how to do it. And if you're giant, then poach somebody and work with them. And all you do is operate it, but you don't build it yourself.
Yeah, if you're going to build like an academy kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, the next one for today is multi-threading an organization. Keenan, take it or leave it?
Leave it. Leave it. Now, here is my definition of multi-threading. Multi-threading for the purpose of multi-threading. And that's what's happening. Reps are going out there and they're talking to Min and they're like, well, Min's only the director, so I got to go talk to the CFO and I got to go talk to the users and I got to go talk. And they start running around trying to talk to all of these people. When you, Min, have complete authority to make this decision, or you're the primary person to drive the sale, and you have not explained to me in any way, shape, or form the value I bring by talking to these other people. And so you run the risk of pissing you off. So let me help everybody understand this. The only way multi-threading works is when you and your initial buyer see the value to you having a conversation with somebody else. Multi-threading, as described and used today, is the value to me. I need to talk to the CFO to close the sale. I need to talk to the user. I need to talk to the CFO. No, the only value is multi-threading to the buyers themselves. Becc.
I got 18 seconds. I cannot cover multi-threading in 18 seconds. So I'm going to ask for a reprieve. I'm going to ask for a reprieve of the horn.
Oh, okay. You want me to not do the horn, or you want me to just start after the horn?
No, always got to do the horn. Always got to do the horn.
Then you talk.
I'm sorry. This is like a fight between mom and dad.
Okay. So multi-threading, I'm absolutely a take it. But to Keenan's point, Brigham Young, a couple different universities did a number of studies on what's the quickest way to blow trust. The fastest way to torture a relationship is to not lie. It's to circumvent. You're better off lying to someone's face about something and getting caught than circumventing them. So if you don't have the buy-in from the initial buyer, you absolutely should not because you're going to torch your initial relationship. I've seen it happen time and time again. But Keenan's point, if you've added value, they want you to be involved in the multi-threading process because they're like, it looks good on me when this person's in front of my CFO or CRO because they've done such a great job with me. I have to think that they're going to do the same level of job and add the same level of expertise to CRO, VP of sales, whoever else is involved, and they're going to do some of my dirty work for me. Like they're going to help do some of that fighting because they're going to be able to contextualize it to why it would matter to a CRO or a VP of sales. So how it's normally done, to Keenan's point, I'm definitely a leave it. But multi-threading at large, if you've done the original thread correctly, then absolutely it should be a value add to you and your buyer that you are multi-threading to the other parties involved to make their battle internally a little bit easier.
Okay. With that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
The inbox.
this is the segment where Keenan and Becc answer questions from our audience. And to help with that, we have our trusty mailbox. Let's see what type of letters we have today.
I just want to see a video of men writing these questions and putting them in the mailbox.
100%. I do it every podcast. But this one is from AB Muhammad from LinkedIn.
Your thing's off.
Came off last Friday.
Congrats.
You
Congrats.
still have 4 more months of rehab.
4 months. Good Lord.
I can't even get my hand over my head.
Well, hey, this question is from AB Muhammad from LinkedIn. He says, one of the most important things is to establish credibility really fast when speaking to a client. Is this best done by asking questions that demonstrate your knowledge in the customer's business, or through something like what Challenger Sales teaches, where you start off by detailing your point of view, what similar clients are going through, etc.? Assume you are a LinkedIn rep selling to recruitment agencies. Keenan.
Becc raised her hand. You can go back.
Becc, sorry. I don't actually see when you raise your hand. I'm looking at a very little screen right now.
Go Becc. That's fair.
So Becc, go. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think it's a hybrid of both. Your goal in asking questions shouldn't be to establish credibility with someone. Your goal to ask questions should be to be able to diagnose, and that, as a side effect, establishes credibility with them. So if Challenger, you're just quote unquote teaching them things without asking questions, I don't believe that you have the internal scope knowledge. There are things that are not on paper beforehand that you need to ask the questions to find out the information. So if you're just quote unquote teaching and taking control without asking questions first, then I don't believe that you have the credibility that you've diagnosed and that you're teaching accurately. And if you're asking questions just to make them think in a certain way or get them to think that you're credible or think that you're an expert, that's what stood out to me about that question. It's like, I don't know how it was exactly phrased, but it was like, should I ask questions so that they think that I'm an expert? It's like, no, you should ask questions to be able to gain the knowledge that you need to diagnose because you're an expert. Like, I can't move forward unless I know the answers to those questions ethically. So I'll never forget this, and then I'll pass to Keenan. But I was asked by a CEO, sales tech company I was working for, and everyone was in the room. He was like, so what do we do? Well, and he passed it to the VP of sales, and he's like, we're the number one, blah, 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 answers. Sales director, answers. Marketer, answers. Gets to me, and I'm like, well, what buyer persona are you? And he's like, Becc, don't be difficult. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm like, at least give me some level of buyer persona of like what problem I'm solving. So without that information that you don't know the answers to, you should almost see it as you cannot move forward. You can't prescribe without knowing what's wrong. So neither is my answer. Keenan, what do you think?
There's two types of there's two types of credibility. So one type of credibility is the credibility that I'm an expert. I believe an expert. Technically speaking, that could be done by telling, right? And sharing all your knowledge. I know this, and my understanding of this and blah, blah, blah. I could just talk all day long. Let me tell you how this works. I'm an expert. The other part of credibility is credibility that you can solve my problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very different type of credibility, right? And so you can't gain credibility that you can solve my problem by telling somebody something. The only way you can gain credibility that you can solve my problem is by asking questions. So the objective here is to be able to accomplish both, because the credibility you want isn't credibility that you're an expert, and it's not credibility that you can solve my problem. It's ideally credibility you're the expert who can solve my problem, right? And so the way to do that is start with questions that focus on very specific things that non-experts wouldn't know.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. To start with specific questions in areas that non-experts wouldn't know. That's how you build credibility.
Amen.
Amen.
It's almost like it makes people, I'll watch true experts. I've watched you before, Keenan. And it's like, and it's like you can't answer. It makes you uncomfortable to answer before a question. Speaking of experts, I'm a horn expert. That I'm like, I've got one clip of a sentence. But it's like, it should, because you're just, even if you prescribe something and you look like incredible in the moment, once they take that thing home and it doesn't solve their problem, you aren't an expert anymore.
Yep, 100%.
All right. And with that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
The challenge.
this is the segment where Keenan and Becc break down a challenging subject within the sales industry. And today's challenge is how to get your first line managers to review deals in the pipeline. Keenan, why don't you start us off with this one?
Thank God.
So this one is every year or so I stumble into something, literally stumble into something. And I've stumbled into this probably with my purchase of Node Analytics. I am absolutely baffled by how little emphasis and insight frontline sales managers have at the opportunity layer in the CRM. They do not read it. They do not go through it. They don't pay attention to it. They look at the numbers. They look at the sales stages, but they don't really dig into the opportunity very often. And that is where the win is. So I'm going to explain my position in 2 seconds, but I want to make sure everybody understands this. The win in a sale is not the number of quote unquote contacts you have. It's not if you're talking to the authority. It's not if they have a budget, whether you asked or not. It's none of that stuff. The win is the ability for the salesperson to assess, is the size of the current problem big enough that this buyer must change, and that the decision to change is greater than the decision to stay the same. And if you are unable to assess that, then you are flying blind the rest of the way through the sale. You can close that shit without knowing it. Trust me, the buyer can know it and you never know it, and you can still close the deal. But if you want to influence the sale, you must know what is going on in that buyer's world from a business perspective that dictates or mandates they must change because the cost of not changing is too high. So therefore, in order to get middle management or frontline management to do that, you have to, 1, hold them accountable. 2, you have to evaluate or create a system that allows you to see and assess their feedback to the reps on the data in the Salesforce or in CRM that matters. 3, you must hold them accountable. I have seen 2nd and 3rd and CRO or 4th line managers do not hold them accountable. Not only have I not seen them hold them accountable, you're going to die. I've heard them say to us, I can't get them to do it. Mm-hmm. I think just hearing that come out of my mouth as my company grows, if I ever hear a manager or a leader say to me, I can't get my team to do something, I am letting that person go on the spot. Because what you just told me is you do not have control of your team. And what you have just told me is you lack the leadership abilities to get done what I need to get done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about creating a structure that makes it easier for them to get in there and do it. It's about creating an inspection process that allows you and upper level management to evaluate not only what are they looking at and what are they evaluating inside the CRM, but also what feedback they're giving to the reps to improve the opportunity to close the deal within the CRM.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost it. So it's making it easy for them, holding them accountable, creating a feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shoot, and I'm missing one. Oh, and it's creating a culture that highlights the importance of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I literally think this is my big win going into next year is not enough organizations understand the importance and the value of the frontline manager and the frontline evaluation of opportunities. It's a massive miss. And so the last one is explaining to the reps, to the middle frontline managers, the value and the importance of why this level of inspection at this layer matters and what happens when you don't do it. So those are my 3 or 4 pieces. Becc?
What do you think the cadence should be for a manager?
Okay, ideally the cadence should be within 24 to 48 hours when the first opportunity goes in. It should be reviewed and feedback should be provided in a written format as quickly as possible. Then it should be within 24 to 48 hours every and any time something substantive changes on that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the problem, and I'm biased and I admit it. Most current structures don't allow for that.
Mm-hmm.
There's no processes in place that allow to get done. The traditional capturing elements or the data capturing elements in the existing field, the existing structure of CRMs does not make that process easy. So what happens is most of the time middle management or frontline managers just wait until the end of the opportunity. Like they wait to the later stages. Then they take a look at the deals that are in the latest stage and the most important, and then they start doing the inspection. The problem with that inspection is if there's anything material that's missing, it's almost too late to go get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost too late to reshape the deal or re-influence the deal.
All right, Becc, what are your thoughts on this one?
I've been thinking a lot about the concept recently of influence and like what that means. And I know that everyone's after influencing a sale, otherwise you're Keenan's words, you're an order taker, right? So, and when I look at the word influence, it means to affect something by way of change. So what that means is your buyer comes in with a belief system. They believe that this is the problem they should be solving for their outcome, that this is the root cause of whatever it is, that this is the reason of why they should buy, and this is what they need, and that's what's creating the buyer intent. But if you don't change any elements of that by way of uncovering something that they believe that's incorrect or finding something that they missed, then you haven't influenced the deal at all. So they may as well have just gone and vended, online and just like there are faster ways to take orders. So the reason a doctor exists is because generally speaking, most patients get some piece wrong. That's why it's illegal to gain a prescription without going through a doctor, because the belief system is the doctor provides a level of expertise, and the level of expertise that they provide is that they're able to correct a misassumption by the patient. So if we view it in that same facet, if I don't find something that you have done incorrectly, a root cause that is not the true root cause, a root cause that even if you change it won't actually solve the problem, a problem that even if you solve it won't actually get you the outcome, a problem that even if you solve it won't avoid the impact you're trying to avoid, an impact that's actually not going to become true at all, an impact that people haven't even thought about or haven't even found, a future event that's going to happen that they're not even aware of. If you don't find any of that in the sales process, not only are you useless, but you didn't influence the sale at all. So I deeply, and then I'm going to pass back to Keenan, I really deeply struggle every day with thinking that the sales profession has, to my knowledge and from my perspective, no role currently. Because by and large, they're not diagnosing. So what truly is their job, other than they think in their head to pull some techniques and put pressure on the buyer? So if you aren't doing that and you aren't influencing that change, I would take the respectable position of one of two things: either get out of sales and go into another technical field where you can affect something, or learn how to diagnose by gaining expertise and knowledge about your buyer. But those are the two options, in my opinion, because gone are the days where people can't self-diagnose. Now they can do that at large and just as well as you can with the limited information. Keenan, what are you thinking? You're pointing at something.
No, I was just agreeing.
So if to bring it round robin, if the managers aren't looking for that and being like, hey, sales rep, what's the problem they're trying to solve? What's the root cause? What's the impact? What do you believe that the impact is?
Yeah.
They simply have nothing to coach towards.
They have nothing to coach on.
They're like, what's the story with this deal? And the person's like, oh, well, this is the story. And they're like, well, follow up with them.
Yes.
And that's seen as management.
Yes.
So I think the key piece that has to change
There's
is
no definition.
the system.
There's no definition of what a great opportunity looks like and why. That's the problem.
Which is bizarre to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, horn me. Fine, I'll take the horn. We're sitting on this podcast, and for thousands of years to date, sales has had no expertise.
No.
They simply haven't. And to me, I'm like, the amount of change that we need to see in that industry for it to truly be a respectable profession, not only one that's not manipulative, but an actual real job. Like one that, people don't make fun of all day and they're like, oh, sales reps are here.
Yeah.
Is like that. There are thousands of discovery calls happening right now where they're like, what are you here for? Oh, okay, let me show you that. And then they go into a shitty product demo that's not half as good as what a product marketer could have done.
Mm-hmm.
And they could have done online. That's happening right now. And that blows my mind. Anywho, I'm not going to cry.
Well, all right. With that, we are on to the last segment of this podcast, which is...
Oh, listen, just one more thing.
This is the segment where Becc and Keenan share what's on their mind and give us their closing thoughts. So, Keenan, tell us your just one more thing.
I think I'm going to make this one a short one. My one more thing is around personal development and self-awareness. I too often come in contact with people who just lack the self-awareness of who they are, what they're good at, why they're good at, what they're bad at, how they engage with people. So there's something called the Johari's window. For those of you who don't know, look it up. The Johari's window is the perception of the world's view on you compared to your perception of self. Okay. And there are 4 quadrants. One is what I know about myself and what others know about me. And this is the total known.
Slow down. Keep going.
This is the total known. Okay? I know I'm loud. I know I'm intense. The world knows I'm intense. No surprises. The other one is what I know about me that, generally speaking, the world doesn't know about me. It's the usually things I keep to myself. I keep buried. I hide, whatever. Okay? That's my known self that I don't let the rest of the world see. Then there are those things that I don't know about me and the world doesn't know about me. There's debate on whether or not those things exist, if that's really a thing or not, right? But that's it. The last one is what I don't know about me that the world knows about me, and that's called the blind spot. The only way to address the blind spot is through feedback and self-awareness. But it appears every single day in this society, because of social media and because of wokeism, and I'm a liberal, and because of the people can't get their feelings hurt, because of lawsuits, because of everything else, It's driving people to allow them to ignore their blind spots and embed themselves in false beliefs of themselves and what they're capable of and how they're affecting people. And not only that, it allows them to double down on it's not happening or continue to create that type of dysfunction. And it's not only hurting society, but it's hurting the individual. It's hurting the individual. And I will end it with this. It's what triggered it. I had a long time follower, connection, friend, whatever you want to call it, on Facebook. She created a post that said this person had an arrow up to her profile, didn't follow the what were the pandemic laws, the shelter, right? The shelter in place, whatever rules, right? And then it said down to her followers, whether anybody said like or no, and we didn't either, or we won't next time either. It was some basically thing that said I didn't follow them, I'm not going to again, and neither
Like
of these people.
lockdown parameters or like masks?
Lockdown. It was lockdown. Yeah, the whole lockdown, right? I didn't follow the lockdown parameters, and I'm not going to again, if ever again, and neither of these people. And it pointed to people who said I like. And I went on and I simply said, that's not true, and I know it. And I said, because God forbid we have another pandemic with an 80 to 90% mortality rate and a 90 to 100% transmission rate, you are going to shelter, you're going to follow lockdown as fast as your little ass can carry you, and you ain't coming out of the house until either it's killed so many people the disease has died off or until there's a vaccine. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. There's nothing to do. That is an absolute. I don't care what the new one is. It's up to be COVID. I don't care what it is. That's a fact. She blocked me.
This is a friend? How long have you known this person?
Not the point. Not the point. Not the point.
How long have you known this person?
Not the point. They've followed me and been a friend for years, but that's not the point. They simply were so offended by the fact that I put a very standard fact that it's inarguable. Am I right? It's inarguable. If another one comes out with 90% mortality rate and it has 100% transmission rate, your ass is going to be in lockdown by choice, whether the government tells you or not. And I even said in it, some of you will drag your ass, but the minute 2, 3, 4, 5 of your friends drop, oh, you're in the house lockdown, don't come near me. And she was so offended, she blocked me. It's time we become self-aware and start being vulnerable to being open to different perspectives and different understandings of who we are and why we're scared, why we're fighting, why we're not open. Longer than I thought. Sorry, Becc.
All right, Becc, what's your just one more thing?
Well, the reason I was asking is if you'd been friends for like 30 years or something, the amount of that granularity. So my one last thing, mine will be short, is I was watching this. I'm a fan of Dua Lipa. She's a musician, for any of those who don't know her. And I was watching this short that came up of her, and they said, how did you get your manager? And her answer really struck me. She said she started playing YouTube covers, like covers of songs, and then like uploaded them onto YouTube. And then she'd show them to all of her friends, and she'd make her friends watch them. And then she basically leveraged that to get in front of producers. It was like, hey, I really like to sing. I want to, will you give me some studio time, basically? Because at that point she has no money. But the point that really struck me was she goes, so then I made a bunch of demos, and I knew that I needed a manager. So I Googled managers in London, and someone tried to publish her, and she got a lawyer because she knew that she needed a lawyer. And that lawyer was like, don't take that publishing deal. Let me introduce you to a great manager, and introduce her to her manager to this day. His name's Ben. So the reason I tell that story is there's a number of different pieces there where she took the initiative to say, like, I'm going to make YouTube videos and put them up. I'm going to get in front of producers and tell them I like to sing. I'm going to, because she had a dream and she had a vision in her head, and she wanted to make that happen for herself. So when she knew that she needed a manager, She didn't wait or complain or why don't I have a manager? She Googled managers in London, and then she Googled that she needed a lawyer, and she chased things down. This girl is now one of the biggest musicians from a global perspective, on the top charts, extremely innovative. I mean, she is just incredible. And she's 28. So I'm like, she was probably doing this at like 15, 18 years old. So my push is like, if a 15-year-old's going to do that, are you really going to sit there and have the justification that she had some things that you don't? Because she didn't have anything. She had a computer. And so she's like, I need to find a manager. So if you're not going to make things happen, just admit that and be real with that. But stop blaming that everyone else had all these other things that you didn't. And that's the reason for their success. Because I'm like, I now get to enjoy her music today because of her accountability. And so I was just so impressed by that story. And the way that she told it was just so sweet and with just a lot of class that I'm like, look, if she can do it, you know, now there are a number of things, talent, luck, etc., that are going to come into play. But she wasn't going to take a no, and she wanted to make something happen, and so she did. So that's my one last thing. Go Dua Lipa.
I like that.
Hey, that's our podcast.
Thank you, everybody. Great job, Becc. I love that. Y'all have been listening to the Sales Top to Bottom. I'm your host, Keenan.
And I am Becc. I will see you next week.
Peace.